Hello, you are listening to an interview with Professor Anja Jetschke, the first member of the SNIS Scientific Committee to accept going through our adapted Proust questionnaire of sorts. Anja is German and a professor of international relations at the Georg August Universität in Göttingen. When I asked her, Anja told me she likes to listen to electro music to relax, and for dancing she prefers swing. So I say, let's get this party swinging. Anja, thank you for accepting to do this interview with us. And there I go with my first question. Did you know of the SNIS existence before being invited to be part of its scientific committee?
No, I didn't. And I was very surprised when I read about it. I was invited to participate in it. So I was actually positively taken by the approach of SNIS, but I didn't know it before. So I come from a German context, so I'm not familiar with many research institutions outside of Germany, but I was surprised.
Oh, I get quite giddy when I hear you saying that. But can you tell us what is surprising and different about it?
So what is very distinct about SNIS is how it approaches interdisciplinarity. So when we look at projects, we always look at how many different disciplines are participating. And many research institutions write that they want to see interdisciplinary projects, but then you are sitting at a table with many peers from the same discipline, and they are very rigorous. They want to see a clearly disciplinary oriented project. Or you have an interdisciplinary committee, but then everybody shies away from evaluating a project that is not from one's own discipline. And at SNIS, the approach is quite distinct because we look at how the group is being composed. And then we also bring our own expertise to the table. And what we are seeing is that when we do that, the projects become more impactful and they become more wholesome in a way because they take a more comprehensive approach.
Well, as I said, it's great to hear that about a place one is working at. And I'm sure that our researchers who are going to be most interested to listen to this audio portrait would like to know more about your journey as a researcher. What have you been doing that made you interested and brought you to the SNIS?
So I'm a political scientist and my special focus is on international relations. As a researcher and as a discipline, I still focus very much on states and their behavior in international relations. My main area of research, however, are the international relations of Asia. So my largest expertise is on ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, which I study as a regional organization and as a counter model in a way to the more formalized approach of the European Union. Over time, I expanded my research area to comparative regionalism. So my largest project was one where I studied the institutional design of over 70 regional organizations. So this broadened substantially my research area. And with it, I also became more quantitatively oriented. I started actually as a quantitative researcher with single case studies, comparative case studies.
But that is a transition that not many people make, right? How did it all happen?
Perhaps the thing that really triggered my thinking about looking at things more from a quantitative perspective was that I wanted to study the diffusion of institutional design. So the larger idea was, is the EU really a model for other regional organizations? So when I submitted my research proposal and an article actually to a journal, one reviewer said, you can't study this with a single organization. You have to do it quantitatively. And then I really thought, first I was a little bit angry about it. And I thought, yeah, of course you can study it also qualitatively. But when thinking about it, it really caught me. And I thought, yes, I'm going to do it. And I'm showing you, I don't know the reviewer, but I'm showing you in particular that I can do it. So I designed this large scale project, which became really, it's a big thing. It's a big data project. And it has caught me for the last 7 years. So that's a long time, but it's also quite rewarding because the kind of data we gathered is quite fruitful in terms of writing journal articles.
I am familiar with the "I'm going to show you" feeling. It really spurs one on. But many would also get disengaged following a moment like that.
I mean, if you take the road to academia, everyone knows it's extremely hard and it can be quite painful. Also in terms of you have to apply many times for research funding, for fellowships and so on. And very often you get declined. But ultimately what counts is that you get the one fellowship that changes your life or changes your career path. So when I started my career, the times were really difficult because there were only very few positions in academia. So competition was extremely high. I already had a child, so I had to combine rearing a child with an academic career. But nevertheless, the career path can be quite rewarding. So my son, for example, he says when he hears the parents of his friends and so on, they always complain about their jobs, that they question what their job is still good for. And he says he never heard that from me. So it's a job that is highly where you have a high degree of self-determination.
So do you talk with your son about politics?
Yeah, I do this quite a lot. He has also studied political science. At home, we talk a lot about not only politics, but also about specific research projects. And I must say that I get a lot of ideas from him about what could be the next project. And he has a very good take on what might be interesting research topics.
You mentioned the new generation of researchers. What, in your opinion, has changed in the way that research is done today?
My take on it is that it has indeed changed because methods have assumed a much higher priority and relevance if you write a research proposal, for example. Most of the time, evaluators want to see a rigorous research design, which combines quantitative and qualitative analysis. So they want to see mixed research designs. But most of all, they want to see a clear research strategy, which combines many aspects, like you have to show that you have a plan for storing the data, for example. You have to show earlier what kind of interviews you are going to conduct, how you proceed with your sampling. When I did my first projects, nobody really asked we were trained to say something about the political relevance of a project and of course about the scientific relevance of a project. And this is something that has become much more important. Also, the journals where we publish ask specifically what is the possible policy impact.
And maybe you can also tell us and those who are listening, what are you looking for in a SNIS project? What is a good project for you?
As I said, mostly I look at, in a way, methodological rigor, because if you can have the strongest and most fascinating research question, but if you don't have a plan how to investigate it in a rigorous way, then it doesn't really help. I find it highly fascinating when we get projects where very different disciplines work together and the projects themselves are highly varied. So we have had projects which look at trade agreements, which are a fairly standard topic in international relations, but then they go into a very different direction in terms of how can we make EU agreements more legitimate? Because there is, of course, a lot of criticism in its external application. So this is the combination of these different approaches is highly interesting. Yeah. So these are the topics that these are the features that I look at.
Anja Jetschke, thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview. We finish it with a well-known swing partitur to get us all in the mood for some quality research. And we wish you all the very best for the future.